Hello and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location in the newest battleground state of Colorado. Here we speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God. My name is Nicholas Ravzo, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez. Hey, give it up for the Hispanic Patriots!
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We have a lot to unravel tonight. We'll be paying tribute to the 9/11 memorial, and then we're going to get into some debate discussion. So, again, welcome to a very special edition of the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. Before we get started, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. We are growing. Thank you for that. We want to continue to grow, spread the word. Please consider joining our cause with a financial contribution of any amount. It helps keep the home fires burning. Thank you for tuning in and supporting us on this show. Now, today marks the 23rd anniversary of the attack on America on September 11th, 2001 by radical Islamic terrorists led by Osama bin Laden. That date is seared into the minds of most Americans alive on that date. We know we have some younger viewers, but I'm sure you're up to date on what took place on that day. I remember very vividly what I was doing that fateful morning and what transpired the rest of the day and in the weeks and months following. The 2,977 individuals that were brutally slaughtered that day and the 6,805 brave American soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice in the ensuing war on terror shall never, never be forgotten. Let's take a moment to honor the lives of the fallen. We're going to take a quick moment and play something for you. And we at the Hispanic Patriot want everyone to know that the lives of those who fell that day and those subsequent to that are never going to be forgotten. So please offer a prayer for those currently serving in our armed forces and for the families of those who died on that day. We have a whole generation of Americans who were not alive on September 11, 2001. We believe firmly in our hearts that it is important for those who were and lived through the attack to instill upon that younger generation what exactly happened on that day. If you haven't had an opportunity to really look into and dig deep into what took place, I encourage you to do that. The acts of heroism in New York at the Twin Towers, in that isolated field in Pennsylvania, and at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. have been recounted memorialized and etched into the history of our great nation. I can still recall my reaction when my wife came into my home office that morning and said, "Turn on the TV." I thought that was kind of strange, but I went ahead, and when I turned on the TV, there was the site of the first tower near the top, smoking and bellowing flames where the first plane had crashed into the tower near the top. At that moment, it was not known what had happened. Some were speculating that a small aircraft had accidentally crashed into the tower. The initial crash was at 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time. A short while later, at 9:03 a.m., the second plane crashed into the tower, and I was watching it as it happened. At that moment, I had a gut-wrenching feeling that this was no accident. We were under attack. It was deliberate, and I knew instantly that it was a terrorist attack. I felt sick to my stomach, which then quickly turned into a boiling of my blood with anger. Anger at those who had done such an evil and despicable thing. Anger at the cowards who had attacked innocent civilians because they knew what would happen if they attacked our military. I was basically numb for the rest of that day and several days afterwards. The whole country was in shock. We all watched as the events of the next several days unfolded and the evidence of who had perpetrated the attack became very clear. We watched as President Bush spoke through a megaphone at Ground Zero among the firefighters and rescuers working feverishly to try to find survivors. And he uttered those chilling words, "We hear you. The world hears you. And soon the people who knocked down these towers will hear all of us." That sent a chill up my spine and goosebumps all over. America was united. And it was united as more than that I had personally ever witnessed before. It was a time where we were all one. We were all one as a nation. There were no Democrats, there were no Republicans, there were no independents, there were no black, white, yellow, green, or purple people. We were all together, and we all felt the grieving of what was taking place during that week. So we extend our prayers to the families of those who died that fateful day. We pledge to you here at the Hispanic Patriot that your loved ones will never be forgotten. So I can tell you this. It was a super. I still get emotional when I think about it. It's a date that I will never forget, a moment that I will never forget, and I can still take myself back to that morning and relive the feelings that I had. Um, it was such a mixture of emotions, and it was like Americans were walking around in a trance for several days because they just couldn't believe what had transpired. We watched, mesmerized at the TV, as the first tower fell and then the second tower fell. And then the scrambling, and everybody knew that at that time that there were not only the people within the buildings, but there were a lot of firefighters and police and rescuers that had entered the building with the hopes of trying to rescue people up on the top levels because um, the escape had basically been cut off because of how the plane crashed into the building. So the people at the above the crash were not able to find a way to get down. And then the sickening feeling later when they were showing videos. This was before the towers collapsed. You could see live video, and they were showing the lobby of one of the towers, and all of a sudden you started hearing these thumps, and nobody knew what was going on. And then the camera panned back, and people from the top had decided that they were better off jumping than dying in flames. And those were the bodies of people hitting the awnings and the ground and cars. It was just horrible. I'll never forget that day, and I hope America never forgets that. The one thing, if I could leave my thought on it, is I would wish that somehow we could harness that feeling of unity that we had as Americans on that day and the days to follow, because it was real. You didn't see people arguing. I mean, everybody was together. My brother lived in New York at the time. He lived like half a mile from ground zero, and he worked late nights, so he was asleep. But then he said he was awakened by the blaring sirens. Now, in New York, he was used to hearing sirens, but he said this time it was unlike anything. It was nonstop. So he went outside to see what was going on, and he said he just saw fire truck, police, rescue, ambulance, and everything going towards the scene. And then he walked about a half a block where he could see, and that's when he said he saw the towers burning and people just running from the scene. And he couldn't believe it. And now it was interesting because the first person I tried to call was my brother, and you couldn't get a hold of anybody. The cell towers were down because not only of emergency, but of the chaos that was taking place, and everybody was, I'm sure, trying to be on their phones. So it basically crashed the cell system. And so I didn't get to talk to him for like 2 or 3 days after. So we didn't know anything. Yeah, we don't know if he was all right, what was going on. So it was pretty harrowing for a while. So today we remember that fateful day, and we just want to extend our thoughts and prayers to the families of those that are, I'm sure, grieving today, still grieving their loved ones. I've heard a couple of speeches today by one young lady who was 6 years old at the time when her dad died, and she recounted, she was thanking her dad for the 6 years that she had with him, and it was just heartbreaking.
Definitely is. It really shows how, that this attack affected all Americans. Like you said, it made us different. I was about 8 years old at the time, or so, 7 or 8. So I was in grade school, and even then it was completely ubiquitous because immediately, we had these like old style TVs, and they had them on like carts. So there's this sort of vivid memory a lot of millennials have of the TVs being rolled in.
Yeah, these were pretty flat screens.
Yeah, definitely. And nowadays we would have all been viewing it on our phones straight, to it. But at the time, that was how they showed us. Because it was also, living in Chicago where I was, there was a feeling of once we found out it was a terrorist attack, because like you said, so many people thought it was an accident at first. That was the natural understanding. There was the fear that other cities would be attacked in a similar way. So that anyone who lived by a major city, there was sort of more concern. But honestly, it broke our world as kids. I'm going to be very clear about that. We were raised with this sort of Francis Fukuyama end of history kind of idea. Everything's going to be fine and dandy from here. All the great enemies are over, and peace is about to engulf the world. There was this idea that we're not going to have the problems that we had in the past. 9/11 broke that entirely. It destroyed that idealization of that world, for good or ill. It destroyed American lives, 3,000 American lives. And I actually had a teacher this is one of the best classes I ever had in high school. It's called American Studies. It was a combination of American literature and American history, so culture and politics together. And he, one of the teachers for that, he was supposed to be in the building on 9/11, and through a series of circumstances, he wasn't there that morning. So I feel like everyone in America has some sort of connection to 9/11, no matter how young you were. Like I said, I remember it being in school. I remember it being not really something I understood at first, other than, okay, everything's different now. That was the biggest thing, even as a 7-year-old, that you could understand. That was the major feeling. Everything is going to change now. Yeah, it definitely has. So we still are living in the post 9/11 world in that sense. That's when the war on terror happened. That war led to the problems and tensions that we have now in Afghanistan, Iran, and elsewhere. So we're still living in the consequences of 9/11, and like World War I and many others, we'll probably be seeing them for many years to come. So God, it's there.
Let's bring in our guest, George. George, how are you? Welcome.
Hello,
very
George.
Good. Thank you very much.
Can you hear us all right?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're on there. So we're just concluding our 9/11 memorial.
Yes.
And we were recounting our experience. I was not a young man. Nick was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So it was just a horrible day. So we've given our tribute, and we pray for the families that still grieve, even to this day.
God rest their souls.
Yeah, I think it's one of those days where, well, if you were alive at that time, you will always remember where you were when it happened.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So let's dive into what took place last night in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the great debate, or the great 3-on-1, as I call it.
Yeah.
What did you think, George? What did you come away with on that?
Well, I was, I of course, like most people who saw it, recognized that it was a pile-on against Donald Trump. We've got to understand that after his last performance against Biden, there was absolutely no way that the mainstream media, the liberal media, was going to let him get away with it and allow him to look good. There was certainly no way that Kamala, because she is a woman of color, as we keep being reminded, that she was going to be allowed to look bad. It was stacked, it was unfair, and it was biased. The questions were always very simple for her, and then there was no follow-up. With Trump, there was a question, and then there was an argument with him.
Yeah, they were participating in the debate, as Clay was saying on the radio today. He said these people came and they weren't moderators; they were participating in the debate, fact checking Trump at every turn and not fact checking her at all.
Yep, that's exactly right. There was no fact checking at all. And, she would say a lie and then she would repeat it and then they would repeat it. And it was, it was so bad. On the other hand, I think I must be, honest and say that at times Trump let them get under his skin. And at times he lost his cool and he didn't follow up. He could have easily have followed up rather than going off on a tangent. He could have easily followed up and said, okay, she hasn't answered the question. And then pushed back on it. But he didn't. He would go off and he'd either speak about something that was already that had already happened or a previous question, or he would go and he would try to justify, and that's what it sounded oftentimes. Now, how this impacts, my biggest concern is how many of these sound bites the Democrats are going to use at this point as a result of this debate. I hope that Trump has learned a big lesson from it, and if he is going to participate in a second one, which she claims she wants to do, that this next time he'll handle it differently. And the whole bottom line to this whole thing is that so many lies. I mean, there are so many fabrications. Everything from her being a successful prosecutor to what she did, what she has done for the border, what she plans to do, and what she plans to do, and what she plans to do. That she has changed her values.
No, her values haven't changed.
Values are the same. Yeah. Values are the same, but the policies, which is very, very, that's like telling me that that the tiger is going to cease having stripes, but he still has stripes. How is that? How does that work?
Well,
so,
she's keeping her values, but she's abandoning them once she gets into office.
There you go. There you go. And I mean, the easy thing to attack on that one is, she's a liberal Marxist who will say anything to get elected.
Yeah, well, that's a fact, and Trump did good on pointing that out. That she was a Marxist, her father was a Marxist.
She did not answer on that one.
Nope.
But she doesn't like her father very much ever since he denounced her for lying about smoking weed and defecting to Jamaican culture and all that. Just a liberal woman with a good relationship with her father. Very common that you.
Yeah, right.
Well, at least she inhaled.
That's a good point. I think she did a little. I think she did a little bit more than inhale, Hugo, based on how she got her job as a prosecutor. But
yeah.
But you're right, George. Absolutely. That while Kamala absolutely visually looked like she was getting, Trump was getting under her skin, there was 2 or 3 points where she kind of trapped Donald. One of the points was on the rallies. It's like, okay, my rallies are much better than yours. I think that was a wasted opportunity.
That was a waste of time. I mean,
but I think Trump had about 2 or 3 of those, whereas Kamala, Trump was able to trick into more of those, especially, them turning on her mic to complain about it, and then stealing her thunder with, I think, everyone's favorite moment when Trump told her, "Excuse me, I'm talking right now. Excuse me."
Exactly.
That was a brilliant point.
That was very, very good.
When she brought up the rally thing, I think it would have been great if Trump would have said, "Well, I wouldn't know. I haven't been to a basement."
That's a good point, actually, Hugo. She kept trying to say, Donald, you're debating against me, not Joe Biden.
Right, exactly.
It was I think she thought it was very cutesy enough, but it's not, because it's like, but you're tying your legacy directly to your bosses. Exactly. It's very silly.
Well, getting back to the point about the effects, I have a couple of quick points that I'm thinking about here. Number one, I'm not so sure that he needs to do another debate. But if he does, it needs to be either on Newsmax or Fox. Otherwise,
it's got to be on his turf now. Next time around, it's got to be. And if she's boasting that she wants to do another one, you ought to push that it's got to be on his turf. Yeah, and if that's the case, you will see her run for the hills.
Yeah, and the other point is, people are trying to say, well, she wants to do another debate because she's got him on the ropes. And my analogy is no. Yeah. Usually after a fight, the one who loses is the one that wants the rematch.
Yeah.
So, Trump may not have been on his best last night, but I still think he won, and I think that he had the stronger of the closes. His close was pretty strong. And he nailed her on the points he wanted to, without her having an opportunity to rebut. So
that was the best time to do it.
I think that was good. But there's, the moderators.
Yes, that's the issue. Yeah, if there's anything that was so clear, was the involvement of the moderators. I would hope that behind the scenes, the media, the liberal media, is beating up on ABC for making it so obvious. ABC just made it so obvious that they were on her side.
Yeah, I mean, there were times where actually David, he actually corrected Trump on things that he's heard from Kamala herself. Talking about especially taking away people's guns. Personally, I think that Trump definitely won the debate, but it wasn't a knockout blow.
No,
but then again, the first one,
he didn't need the knockout.
No,
she needed the knockout.
People expected it because Joe Biden got knocked out in the first debate. People wanted to see that again from Trump.
That was a knockout.
Lightning wasn't going to strike twice because Kamala at least is, somewhat coherent. She just doesn't have much there, but it's she's standing upright at least. Exactly, that's very true, and that helps in Democrat politics. That's what they have to be. But I think that if the third debate is the traditional town hall format, where you have more of the people, whether they're selected or not, Kamala is not a social person. She's honestly a very antisocial person.
That's why she's got a huge turnover in her staff.
Yeah,
she
can't deal with people, and that's dangerous for a political leader. But it's dangerous in a town hall debate format. So I agree that the only thing I would say is if it's a town hall debate, then Trump has the advantage. If it's on his home turf, which it could easily be pushed to be. So the third debate looks like it'd be all pro-Trump, but I think he's got to push for it. But Kamala's got to accept it. So we'll definitely see. This is not over yet, but even close.
If she doesn't, then he should. I mean, he could push on that. Look at her. She's running for the hills.
Yeah, I think he should do it even if she's not there, because Trump, if he's able to show himself more than Kamala's able to show herself, then that's still going to edge in the polls at the end of the day. We don't need this knockout blow.
He could debate her through AI.
That would be fun. Honestly,
of her there, where she has said what she has said, and then he could respond to. Look.
That's the level up from the RNC, empty chair, Clint Eastwood. That would bring that home. I like that idea, George.
Yeah, we should push that.
I think they should do a South
They
Park.
should do it. Have a hologram of and then have him respond to it.
It'd be like, okay, you can tell the difference. It shows that Kamala is basically an AI generated, it's basically they put in Hillary and Obama together in an AI generator. That's Kamala Harris's speeches.
Well, the other thing that I walked away from is, I keep hearing these people talk about how close the race is, but if you look deep down into the race, this is not a close race. Trump, this is my own opinion. Okay, I'm giving my perspective. The only thing in doubt in my mind is how far above 300 electoral votes Trump is going to go. That's the way I feel. And they can talk till they're blue in the face about how close it is, and he's leading. Unlike what they say, he's leading in every battleground state. He's liable to win all 7 of the battlegrounds and take the Electoral College up into the 300, 325 range and leave Kamala in the dust.
Well, that's why they only care about the national polling, not the state polling.
Well, right. But then the other part that they haven't been talking about is the actual numbers with regards to the top 3 issues. Immigration, the economy, and the military. Those are the base. I'm sorry, no, not the military. Immigration, the economy, and what's that other one?
Inflation.
Inflation. There you go. Those are the 3 that they polled at, and I'm paraphrasing, but the numbers were ridiculous. It was like 3-1 on basically all 3 for Trump. And those were polls from people that are really going to vote. And then they had another one out just recently that talked about how people who don't normally vote that are coming out this election, and that number is overwhelmingly Trump.
Yeah.
So, and then you add in the African Americans and the Hispanic vote, and she's toast. I mean, there's no way.
She made the comment about how 81 million people fired him
Yeah.
At that point, let's think about how many of those 81 million were real people that voted, because of so many of those were the mail-in votes, and there is a real effort. I'm sorry, but I've got a lot of friends who are trying to deny and think that say that we're making it up. We're conspiracy theorists again, but here in Texas. In South Texas, I see a big effort by the Democrats to protect the voting rolls, so that they are not cleaned up. There is a real effort to prevent the cleaning up of voter rolls. Why would you want to do that unless you've got some kind of plan to use all those names that people that don't exist?
But I read
Very
that
true.
they had purged over 1 million voters from the voter rolls in Texas. Is that
Yes,
not true?
There have been a
Okay.
million. Can you imagine?
1 million plus.
Wow.
Yeah, they purged, and those were like dead people who moved away,
Yes,
It's
people
entire state's worth of
people who are not citizens, all of that. And then you have to ask yourself, why in the world are Democrats so dead set against proof of citizenship to vote?
Say that. Yeah.
exactly.
What is it about? Hey, I'm a citizen, and here's my proof. What is it about that turns Democrats off? We all know the answer, of course. That's a
And
Well,
we
the
know
other-
from. Please.
Go ahead.
This is from Chicago, where I'm from. We know that the fraud was happening up to the present day. And of course, we know from history, the Democrat Tammany Hall. So the idea that this is all just a conspiracy theory, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's written history. You guys have been caught at it for years, and now it's the go-to guide on how to do it. We've got to stop pretending, like Ronald Reagan said. We can't be shy any longer. 2020, we stopped being shy. We stopped actually being okay with the known fraud that was happening. And I'm glad for it. It's how we raise and become a more developed country. Other countries have it. Hispanic countries have voter ID. Why can't we?
Exactly. Well, the other issue, the battle that we've got to fight, and we saw it last night. The other battle that we've got to fight is the media, because the media consistently carries that narrative that there was no voter fraud, or that there was no problem with voting.
Yeah, the moderators repeated that during the debate.
Yeah. Right.
Don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, really, the house is on fire, and they tell you it's not.
No, well, and also it should be said, those 81 million votes, we know for a fact that many of those would have flipped if the public knew about the Hunter Biden laptop and many other stories about Joe Biden's corruption.
That was the real election interference event that nobody likes to talk about.
Yeah, and like George said, it was the media that made sure that we didn't talk about it.
They said that about 15% of the electorate would have been affected by that information.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's a repeat of the whole COVID situation. We couldn't criticize, we could not question COVID. It was real. Put your mask on and shut up. The same situation we're looking at right now with voter fraud, with election irregularities. Same situation. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Be quiet. Sorry.
Peep about Hillary being an election denier. She still claims the 2016 election was stolen from her by the Russians.
Exactly.
And people forget that
it not us.
People forgot that it was Clinton who brought up the whole Obamas from Kenya thing. It was the Democrats who brought up this whole, now the Democrats are saying, Donald Trump is a dementia patient. He's an old man. You guys want us to, they want us to forget that literally less than a month and a half ago. Exactly. They were totally fine with that then.
I wrote a short piece the other day about how fascinating it is to me that Merrick up there in D.C. and his Justice Department are warning everyone and talking about Russian interference in the election.
Yeah.
However, they don't say a doggone thing. They're getting ready to side with the liberal Hispanic organizations here in Texas to prevent the rolls from being cleaned up. I mean,
Wow.
It's mind-boggling how
So blatant.
hypocritical they are.
No, it's beyond ridiculous, and I think that they're not going to get away with it this time. But I've always said this election, if it ain't close, they can't cheat. So we need to overwhelm them. This needs to be a landslide, and then they can go hang out with their crying towels and board
Have you
Kamala
guys
back to California.
Yeah, have you guys gotten a chance to see the new Reagan movie?
Hugo did. Hugo has. I haven't been able to.
Mary and I went to see it last week. Opening night.
That one part of it where they talk about the 1984 election, where he won, virtually every state in the union except Minnesota and DC.
Yep.
Yeah, Minnesota and DC were the only two places. And I remember that date. I remember that. And I was working in the Reagan administration at that point.
Yeah.
And I remember when it all happened, and we were laughing and we were applauding. But again, I guarantee that the Democrats are at all costs going to avoid anything like that ever happening. And I think it could happen this time around.
It could easily.
It's going to be close because
California, New York, we'd have to, those.
But the fact that the Democrats have to put resources into places like New York now, and Colorado even being somewhere in play, like the Democrats have to work extra hard this season in order to not lose on basic fronts. So the battleground states are even harder for them.
Exactly. And this whole situation of them actively, and they're doing it here in San Antonio, they're actively providing voter registration cards to illegal aliens. We know, like in DC, they passed an ordinance that illegal aliens can vote in local elections.
Right.
So they're actively trying to do that, and I think that they're trying to do it so that they can actively confuse and delay results. I really think that's that's their game plan at this point. Obviously, the long range plan is to get illegals to vote. So I always ask these Democrats, what's the point of being a citizen? What's the point of being a legal, lawful citizen if anybody and everybody can vote?
Well, and that's the thing. They don't value American citizenship, honestly, because they view themselves as sort of world citizens. Exactly. We're American, but we care more about things beyond this. But that's a philosophy. It's not reality at all. See, young people like me, we are attracted to the sort of American restorationist idea of look at the greatness we had under Reagan, stopping the communist revolution, right in its tracks, right at its heart. Look at what Donald Trump is doing, trying to make America better. What's the game end plan of the Democrats? So you can kill your babies while doing all the drugs that you want, while living in never owning a house. There's no positive status quo that the Democrats have to give us. Donald Trump is the only person offering better conditions through serious economic policy that goes against the status quo of Democrats. People say, oh, the party switched. No, the Democrats have always been the status quo party. They don't want things to change. They want the money coming in. They want the power concentrated. That's all they want. And if they had to change and flip-flop a little bit to do it, they're totally fine with that. Republicans have been the only people since our slavery ending days, based on ideals. And to me, I'd rather have ideals than, promises that, hey, your wife can kill her babies if you want, though. There's nothing to offer.
Exactly.
I got notified the other day. I have been accepted as an election judge.
Oh, very nice.
Here in Denver. So I will be sitting there watching with a eagle eye everything that's going on.
And election judges, that's another issue that Democrats fight against here in San Antonio, here in South Texas.
Really?
They don't like election judges. They want an election judge to be cleared by them because of voter suppression, because of voter intimidation.
Yeah,
it's third world. It's third world.
Supposed to go to a training at the end of October, so we'll see how it goes. But I guess they They paid attention to the surname, but they didn't pay attention to my politics.
Hugo Chavez Ray has the best name for a Hispanic conservative.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, he's got to be good.
He's got something to prove.
Yeah, he's got to be a leftist.
Well, in Denver, of course, as you know, George, is extremely far leftist. We got so many socialists and communists in power there. It makes for a very divided Democrat Party, though. So it's one reason that Republicans have been able to be successful here in Colorado despite the uphill battle. Now, you in Texas is the opposite. There's always been this perception that Democrats have the uphill battle in Texas. Do you think that that's necessarily true? And what do you think Texans would be thinking about the debate, left wing, right wing, or Democrat, Republican?
Well, I was at a meeting a little while ago. I just got back from a meeting. I was at a meeting. And the general feeling, again, is, general feeling there was that Trump did okay, that they weren't all excited, but they did all right, that he handled himself fine. Here in Texas, the Democrats are definitely losing ground. Every time that we have an election, they lose more seats in the state house. There is a guy who is running. There is a Democrat who is running against Ted Cruz for the Senate, U.S. Senate seat. Mm-hmm. And rather than running like Beto did with all this fire and flame and carrying on, the guy has been to the border, taken pictures with Border Patrol agents, and claimed that he is for a strong border. You see him he's a black guy, and you see him with his white wife. You see him with his white wife in another ad that he released last week, and he is a homebody. He's worried about the inflation. He's worried about the economy. Then there's
another become a Republican.
Exactly.
That's what they have to do. You saw Kamala do it the same way, didn't you, George? George, you saw them also, because Trump also said the same thing. Hey, why don't you just copy my playbook? I'll send you a MAGA hat. Oh, exactly. that was a fantastic moment too.
And what is fascinating, just like with her, what's fascinating with him is that he avoids completely any conversation about what he has supported in the past. Right. Now, one of the most hypocritical ads that he's had lately is one with police officers, and he's out there fighting crime. But he was one. I mean, he's a congressman from Dallas, and he was one of the loudest voices in Texas after the George Floyd riots, talking about defunding the police, talking about turning the police into social workers. I mean, it was
just like Kamala, man.
But now he's embracing the police officer. I mean, it's so hypocritical.
Well, what I was saying last night, I talked to a friend of mine, and I said, this debate is full of opportunities for the Trump campaign ads coming out, because all they have to do is take her sound bites from the debate, put them up against what she's said in the past, and say, which Kamala do you think is going to be? I mean, she's a gaffe a minute. I'm not against fracking. Definitely, I'm banning fracking.
I won't take your guns.
We're coming after your guns. No, we're not against. We own guns too. Tim and I both own guns. Yeah, give me a break. She's flopped on everything, and then she's co-opted Trump's own agenda, and trying to claim that she's now pro-border, pro-Second Amendment, pro illegal immigrants as far as deporting them, and she's just
pro whatever you need to elect me. I'm pro that.
Exactly. They are shameless when it comes to that. They are absolutely shameless.
At the end of the ad, it should say, I will say whatever it takes to get elected.
Exactly.
If you don't like my values, don't worry. I have others.
I have others.
from the Groucho Marx stuff, Thinking way back.
I could almost write the ads for them, man. But I hope they take advantage of what she did last night, and then all the clips that they have from her in the past, where she was basically, outlining, the Green New Deal and confiscate what they called mandatory buybacks of guns, which equals confiscation. And then on the border, we know she hasn't done anything. And, all the other things that universal health care. She said,
yes.
They asked her Jake Tapper asked her point blank. So you're in favor of taking people's private health insurance away. Well, we have to have that conversation. The goal is, why do you need private insurance? With our plan, everybody gets health care and when you need it. And that's the biggest lie of all, because I would have said,
like they do in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, it really shows, though, that we have made huge ground gains since the Obama time as Republicans. Honestly, the pre-Trump losses in terms of rhetoric and culture that we've had since then, Trump has got it all back, even without winning the election. So we're hopeful. One of the reasons Americans are hopeful that he wins this election is to solidify all of the foundational Make America Great Again ideas that everybody agrees are extremely good. That's why this election and his victory is so important. We need to indelibly mark Trump onto American history so that we have a solid foundation to move forward from. We don't know what the world's going to be like in 20 years. Post-Trump is scarier for leftists, in my opinion, also, than having Trump now. That people have to understand. We are Republicans looking to the future. Donald Trump helps us get to a much better future. Kamala has no idea what the future holds at all because she's more interested about present culmination of power. And that's what people do when they have a pathological need for it. And you saw that once she ran out of DNC talking points, she was much angrier, much less relatable completely. Constantly mad dogging, constantly being mad at Trump about things.
I mean, she was a facial expression a minute. And, and there's something else that I heard recently. I don't know if you've heard it, George or Nick, but there was a rumor going around that the Democrats might be looking to dump Tim from the ticket. Have you heard of that?
Dump who?
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz.
Oh, yeah. I think they've made a big mistake. Yes,
they really should have picked Shapiro.
It would not surprise me, but I think at this point, they just want to keep him in the background.
Well, it's basically, that would be disastrous, I think, because number one, all the ballots have been printed already.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
So what are they going to say? Well, a vote for Walz is a vote for Shapiro.
But the fact they're even thinking about it is how this ticket was put together so slapdashly, so haphazardly. And most Democrats don't like Kamala. They're forcing themselves to like this situation. So they're like, okay, let's toss this guy. Okay, it's like a Lego set to them rather than a democracy, Again, that's what we really need to be saying constantly. No, and Trump said it at the debate. Nobody voted for this woman ever in the first primary, second primary. No one has ever voted for this lady. Why give your first vote for her in a public office ever to
for the highest office?
For national office to someone who has not been voted for up to this point, But Democrats are fine with it. They're fine with, party boss made a much better decision than I did.
Exactly.
So that's the key difference.
It really is clear how boss politics dominate the Democrat Party. It is so clear.
Well, I've spoken to a number of Democrats who I know to be pretty hardcore Democrats, and they have, reluctantly admitted to me, says, we're not voting for her. We can't vote for her. They realize that the economy has been tanked, and giving them the reins for 4 more years will basically crater this country. And so people are going to vote with their pocketbooks, and they're going to vote with their brains. And I don't think they have enough to overcome. You got Gen Z that is basically at 50% Trump right now. You've got millennials that are definite. I don't know how high they are, but they're up there in the numbers. You've got Hispanics, I've heard as high as 50%. You've got the black vote at 30+%. No Democrat has ever been elected with less than 90% of the black vote, ever. So I think the handwriting's on the wall, but the people need to still get out and vote. So
we do.
People that are out there, we urge you, do not become complacent. As soon as you get your ballot, go and cast it, and make sure that your friends, your family, and your neighbors, everybody is voting. This is the only way to overcome this planned coup attempt, the final, which would be the final coup attempt, in my opinion.
Coronation.
And then you have, the potential for real turmoil in this country if they take office, because what they intend to implement,
because they'll be twice as radical as they have been this time around.
Nothing short. They would be emboldened. There'd be nothing short of Venezuela or Cuba.
Yeah,
it's the exact same model. And when I talk to Hispanic people, that's the first thing I bring up. Why would you come to America and then vote for people that want to do the same thing?
Exactly the same thing. You can't.
From what you escaped. What common sense is that? It makes no sense. So we have to fight. We have to continue to inform people. And I think we need to make sure that the vote gets out.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing we can do. Is I signed up for the Trump Force 47 task group, which is making calls into all the different battleground states. I spoke to a nice lady in North Carolina the other day, and she says that, well, I asked her about the questions that we were supposed to ask about and who she was supporting, and she says, I'm supporting President Trump. And then you go into what else are you going to be able to do? And she said, well, I'm in a wheelchair, so there's not much I can do. But I said, oh yes, you can make phone calls directly from your home right there. And I gave her the website, and she said, I'm going to do that.
So that's the thing. You can promote Trump and recruit at the same time,
exactly.
And something that I wanted to say as a young person that a lot of young people are concerned about, more so I think knowledgeable than in the past perhaps, is geopolitics, is diplomacy, is the fact that Kamala Harris has no experience in foreign policy at all. They even asked her, have you ever met President Putin? She didn't give the honest answer. No, I never have. Never met the guy. Don't know what he's like. Trump is the only person who has experience with these dictators who are marching us towards World War III. Even President Putin himself said he'd prefer Kamala. And while people think it was a reverse psychology thing, Putin is very much like Hitler. You have to take what he said at his word. Once no, that was too crazy. He's trying to trick us. No, he's not. He's not trying to trick us. He prefers the lady who's more like Joe Biden. And that's what he saw. He said, if I'm supporting Joe, I'm supporting her. They read her like a book. They can't do that with Trump. So if you're worried about World War III, worried about getting drafted, or your children being drafted for years now because of policies we're messing up on now, that's another reason we got to vote for Trump. There's so many angles to go off of. Somebody has a reason to vote Donald Trump out there. You just got to find out what it is.
And then she said that the world leaders were laughing at Trump.
Exactly.
She hasn't.
They're showing up to him.
Have you guys seen that Australian lady on YouTube?
Oh man,
that does reports about Kamala and Biden and all this.
Oh yeah,
she's hilarious. I'll have to send you the link. I mean, she is great, and she just blasts.
But I wanted to ask George real quick. What do you think about Trump on the foreign policy debate? Well, that part of the debate is: do you think that Trump did a good job showing how strong he'll be on foreign policy, at least?
I think he did. I think he was and this is a thing that his strength is a thing that really angers and frightens the Democrats. And I think it frightens the rest of the world. I think, the issue of why they would, the European Union, NATO, all of them would prefer Kamala, and is because she wouldn't lean on him. She's not going to force him to do anything, do any of the heavy carrying. And the rest of the world, I mean, most of these leaders in the free world are globalists.
Yeah.
It behooves them to have an American who is not America first, but globalist first, because they are globalists. And
tied in with the WEF and all of them guys.
He's going to come in and
world order.
If the policy or the activities don't fit America, he's not going to do it, and that angers them and frightens them.
I watched this idiot on a panel that was talking about how um, the UN was going to send in the blue helmets to America, and I said,
For
"Bring it
what?
on, bring it on, baby."
Bring it on. They would
Well, if they can't even do that to Russia, they're not going to do it to us. We pay most of those stories.
You know what's really one of the things when they say that, one of the things that reminds me of is is the a wonderful portion or part in the documentary, the PBS documentary, The American Revolution. In
Oh, I
it,
love
there
that
is
one.
this one part. In it, there is this one part where the British are marching from Canada through the Hudson Valley to attack New York, and they hit the Hudson Valley, and the Hessians, not Haitians, the Hessians, the Germans are leading the charge,
Uh-huh.
and they're running low on provisions, so they say, well, let's go to the farms like they do in Europe. We're going to go to the farms and we're going to confiscate whatever we need. Well, that may work in Europe, but here the first thing the Hessians, the Germans, found out was that our farmers are armed, and they were in shock. They were in shock. They came running back to Burgoyne, to General Burgoyne, and they told him, "We can't get anything. They've got guns." And Burgoyne just freaked out. I mean, this tells you the American mindset. You know,
Yeah.
Well,
you're going to
the Japanese, the Japanese
Yeah.
generals
Oh,
said
yeah,
the
that's
same
true.
thing.
There'll be a rock,
Exactly.
a rifle
reason-
under every rock.
They said why they couldn't invade America, and said because there'll be a gun behind every blade of grass. You know,
Exactly.
And,
I've only have 3, but you know.
That's pretty low for a Texan from what we
I
understand.
lost all my guns in a boating accident.
I'm from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I'm not allowed to have guns for a while, you know.
unless you got a criminal record, then you can have them.
No, but you know, the military loves people from Chicago, George. We have combat experience, you know. That's why I live here in Colorado Springs. You know, it's a very military town, and that's true. You know, that's one thing I think all of us can respect is that we know that the U.S. military supports Trump. We know who would rather they be leading into battle because what. If we take a moment, of course, remembering 9/11, to come back to that, to remember the fact that Joe Biden ended that saga in Afghanistan the most shameful possible way,
God.
destroying 23 years of American progress and the Taliban back in power. That's what Joe Biden's biggest legacy is, in my opinion, as a millennial who saw 9/11 happen. That to me is it.
Well,
He took us all the way back
They didn't even
Gentlemen,
have the decency to go to the memorial.
Yeah, I need to excuse myself. I've got a
All right, we're about out of
video
time
to do it.
anyway. But thank you for joining us, George.
Oh, my
and,
pleasure, guys.
Absolutely,
Thank
we
you.
loved having you.
Hey, invite me again. I'm more than happy to talk.
All right,
We'd love that, man. We had a very fun conversation, George. We'll
Guys,
see
talk
you
to you
again.
tomorrow. All right,
Have
thanks.
a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care. God bless Texas for you.
God bless Texas.
Texas. Yeehaw. But yeah, that was fantastic. And of course, we very much appreciate George for coming on. George Rodriguez out of what city again, Hugo?
George Rodriguez is El Conservador
El
from
Conservador.
San Antonio, Texas. He has his own syndicated radio show on Salem. And he's a speaker, a very sought after speaker. He goes to Hispanic communities and speaks on all the issues. He is very well versed. He's a veteran. He's been a Fox News contributor, so he's a great guy. I met him when I went down to visit my daughter a couple years ago, and we've been friends ever since. But yeah, he's a great source of information. In fact, I'm going to be he's interviewing me tomorrow morning for his show.
Beautiful. Well, we'll send some links down below for you folks to be able to see Hugo and George Rodriguez.
Well, it's an audio, but we can.
Well,
we can
yeah,
still,
but
I can get him to send us the audio clip, and
we'll get that to you somehow, people. And if not, tune in. We'll have the information for you where you can tune in and all that. And we really appreciate George for coming on.
So we urge everyone, get involved. You saw the debate. If you didn't see it, go on YouTube, go someplace, watch
Go
it.
to Hispanic Patriot, where we saw I had a commentary on it right there.
Yes, we have commentary on the Hispanic Patriot on YouTube, and you'll be able to get the information that you need. We're not going to bore you with innocuous stuff, but we're going to give you the straight the straight and narrow, and we believe that you're smart enough to make a decision when it comes to voting. So
that's what Americans need to do.
we are 55 days away from the election. Time is flying by. Some states' ballots are going out next week. So spread the word. We need to elect President Trump. I'm not going to mince any words about it. We're biased here. We support President Trump for president, and anybody that would pay attention to the news and the agenda that's coming from the left, I think will think the same way. So,
yep.
We want to thank everyone.
Yes, thank you all very much.
Thank you for subscribing. Go to YouTube, go to X, go to Rumble, and help us grow. God bless you. Until next week, God bless America.